Hello everyone, this is Reverend Dr. Roger Paul, here's my wife, Reverend Diane Paul. And tonight we will study paper 99, The Social Problems of Religion. And that starts on page 1086.1 of the original book, or on paper 9901 if you have a new one. Okay, let's have a little prayer and we'll get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight that we might study this wonderful revelation and enlighten ourselves a little bit. Pray that you'll help us remember some of this, that we might share it with others and might make their life more interesting and better. We thank you and we give you the praise in your Son Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, I guess I'll start today. Paper 99, The Social Problems of Religion. Religion achieves its highest social ministry when it has least connection with the secular institutions of society. In past ages, since social reforms were largely confined to the moral realms, religion did not have to adjust its attitude to extensive changes in economic and political systems. The chief problem of religion was the endeavor to replace evil with good within the existing social order of political and economic culture. Religion has thus indirectly tended to perpetuate the established order of society, to foster the maintenance of the existence type of civilization. This is interesting because they make a point here that basically religion, except for the moral values, has no... Oh, I didn't change that. Oops. What did I do there? Let's try this again.
I didn't catch that, Roger. What were you saying?
I was saying that religion, except for the influence on moral values, has no place in politics and sociology, right? Sociology. Basically, it's best to keep religion and the state separate always. And that's the point they're making here, is except for changing mankind in their moral values, religion should stay out of politics. That's just the way it is.
Hey, Roger, I had a question.
And politics should stay out of religion, right? Go ahead, Tim.
How do the revelatories use the word ministry when they talk about ministry?
Well, ministry can be many different things, Tim. Ministry is any service to another of the brotherhood of man, anyone, any service. So a ministry can be feeding someone, standing in a food line, putting food on a plate for someone. It can be helping someone with a problem. It could be something as simple as giving someone a ride to work. That's part of a ministry, all of them. So
also basically the revelatories are also saying that priests and preachers should not be talking mixing politics with their sermons, correct?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And if they do that, what are the consequences in your opinion?
Well, the consequences is this. Your followers believe, because you are stating this from a pulpit, that it's the Word of God. In other words, it's coming from God Himself. And that is not the case in any shape, form, or fashion. When people start preaching about politics from the pulpit, they're talking about their views and their opinions on views. And that's where you should, that's one thing you should never do from a pulpit. And everybody that's ever been in charge of giving sermons or talks or anything like that, eventually once or twice has gotten into that mistake. I've done it myself. But it really belongs nowhere in the realm of religion. It really does not.
You know, there are some fundamentalists that support Israel, which I have no problem with, for all people.
Yeah,
But that would be a political issue, right?
that would be a political issue. That's
If
correct.
you bring it up in your sermons and you're telling people you need to support Israel, etc.
Yeah, that's that person's personal opinion that he feels that, or she feels that that his congregation should support Israel. And in reality, that does not belong in a sermon.
We should really be for everybody.
Should be for everybody, right?
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Billy, would you take the next one, please?
Yes.
But religion should not be directly concerned either with the creation of new social orders or with the preservation of old ones. True religion does oppose violence as a technique of social evolution, but it does not oppose the intelligent efforts of society to adapt its usages and adapt its institutions to new economic conditions and cultural requirements. Did I do something?
No, that's, I need to mute this, I think. Everybody's here. There we go.
You're mumbling.
Sorry. I needed to mute my phone, I forgot to. All right.
It's a sin, Rogers.
That's right. Okay, I think that's all pretty much self-explanatory. I don't think I need to comment on that. All right, Tim, would you take the next one, please?
Religion did approve the occasional social reforms of past centuries, but in the 20th century, it is of necessity called upon to face adjustment to extensive and continuing social reconstruction. Conditions of living alter so rapidly that institutional modifications must be greatly accelerated. Religion must accordingly quicken its adaptation to this new and ever-changing social world.
What are they telling us here? They're telling us that it is religion that has to adapt to the changes of society, not the other way around, right? Because society is going to change, it's going to evolve over time, it's going to get better and better and better over time. It's hard to believe that sometimes, the way we see things going on around us. But as social situations and social reforms take place, then it's religion's responsibility to modify its concepts and its teachings to those social reforms. Okay, not the other way around.
I'm not sure that they have to modify so much as enlarge and embrace.
Yeah, really, enlighten, really is probably a better word, when you say, Millie. We have to enlighten ourselves. As things change, we have to enlighten ourselves to things that are compatible with the social changes, right?
So, hey, Roger,
Yeah.
when it comes down to the Holy Bible, how would you view that?
The Holy Bible is a
In terms
very...
of- Because you're talking about how, religion does need to be modified.
Right. Well,
So
see,
where does the Bible come in?
well, the Bible is a collection of inspired works, okay, inspired books. But the Bible is multiple concepts of many different men's and many different periods of time. Now, y'all already know that I don't believe that the Bible is the Word of God, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I don't believe that's even close. There's too many things in the Bible that are not godly. Okay, number one is their portrayal of God the Father himself. I mean, he's not portrayed anything like the ultimate deity that he is. But it is good for inspiration. The Psalms are great for inspiration. There's some books that are great for inspiration. Paul the Apostle never dreamed in a million years when he was writing letters to the early churches that it would be compiled into the New Testament. If he did, there were many things I'm sure he would have never said, right? Because they were just opinions from him for those local churches. And some of them are just plain downright wrong. I don't care what anybody says. You can blame them. They're just wrong. So that's my opinion of the Bible. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I believe that the Revelatories really summed up the very best in scriptures when it comes down to the Bible.
Yeah.
But also, don't you believe that, man and woman were capable of receiving revelation, the very best of scriptures where it really is praising God?
Yeah.
I mean, didn't the voice of the adjuster, which would be God, did speak to these people, correct?
Down through time, since the beginning of the first person that got the first adjuster, yeah, they do.
Right.
We get inspired by many different ways. Is Rodney? Rodney?
No, Rodney's.
Next. All right. Go ahead, Rod. Oh. Go.
Okay, one, religion and social reconstruction. Mechanical inventions and the dissemination of knowledge or modifying civilization. Certain economic adjustments and social changes are imperative if cultural disaster is to be avoided. This new and oncoming social order will not settle down complacently for a millennium. The human race must become reconciled to a procession of changes, adjustments, readjustments. Mankind is on the march toward a new and unrevealed planetary destiny.
So what's the only constants? Change, right? Things are constantly changing. We have to keep up with them.
Hey Roger, when they say mechanical inventions, what are they talking about?
Well, it's inventions from everything that's come up till now mechanically and everything that's going to come into the future. We got things that are going to be mechanically invented over the next 100 years that would probably just blow our minds, right?
Okay.
Yeah, like the rocket that just went off.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
Right, the word mechanical, correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, the telescopes and everything.
yeah. Sweet.
Religion must become a forceful influence for moral stability and spiritual progression, functioning dynamically in the midst of these ever-changing conditions and never-ending economic adjustments.
Notice here it says it must become a influence for moral stability and spiritual progression. There's that moral again. We have to be the watchdog for moral and spiritual progression. All right. Urantia society can never hope to settle down as in the past ages. The social ship has steamed out of the sheltered bays of established tradition and has begun its cruise upon the high seas of evolutionary destiny. And the soul of man has never before in the world's history needs carefully to scrutinize its charts of morality and painstakingly to observe the compass of religious guidance. The paramount mission of religion as a social influence is to stabilize the ideals of mankind during these dangerous times of tradition, from one phase of civilization to another, from one level of culture to another. See, and there's been times in past where the morals and things going on were stable for long periods of time, even sometimes a whole life of a person. But now things change so quickly that we have to change our ideas of our morality and our religious guidance each and every day almost. Okay, because things change so quickly. Like I said, the only thing constant is change.
Very slow one.
Huh?
Don't you believe that that process is a very slow one? Because if we go too fast, it'd be like the default that Adam and Eve had.
That's right. That's right. We just have to take a break, take a breather, and just let it happen naturally, right? We never throw out, the thing you need to remember, you can't just throw out your old religion and come in with a new. It's a slow process to transform and become enlightened more and more. All right, Millie, would you take the next one, please?
You gotta turn your mic on. Millie, we can't hear you.
Your mic is,
I got it.
okay.
Religion has no new duties to perform, but it is urgently called upon to function as a wise guide and experienced counselor in all of these new and rapid changing human situations. Society is becoming more mechanical, more compact, more complex, and more critically independent. Religion function to prevent these new and intimate inter-associations from becoming mutually retrogressive or even destructive. Religion must act as a cosmic salt which prevents the ferments of progression from destroying the cultural savor of civilization. These new social relations and economic upheavals can result in lasting brotherhood only by the ministry of religion.
And through the ministry of religion, we have to become more accepting of everyone, right? We don't want to go out and start chopping heads off because that somebody doesn't believe like we do, right?
Mm.
So. Tim, would you take the next one, please?
Godless humanitarianism is, humanly speaking, a noble gesture. True religion is the only power which can lastingly increase the responsiveness of one social group to the needs and sufferings of other groups. In the past, institutional religion could remain passive, while the upper strata of society turned a deaf ear to the sufferings and oppression of the helpless lower strata. In our modern times, these lower social orders are no longer so objectively ignorant, nor so politically helpless.
So even the lowest order of humans have a voice now, right? Which in the past that was not always true. All right. Rodney.
Okay, religion must not become organically involved in the secular work of social reconstruction and economic reorganization, but it must actively keep pace with all these advances in civilization and making clear-cut and vigorous restatements of its moral mandates and spiritual precepts. Its progressive philosophy of human living and transcendent survival. The spirit of religion is eternal, but the form of its expression must be restated every time the dictionary of human language is revised.
Okay, so that tells us that we have to change our expression of what we believe and keep our moral compass intact as we do that, right? So things change, so we have to change with them. All right.
2. Weakness of institutional religion. Institutional religion cannot afford inspiration and provide leadership in this impending worldwide social reconstruction and economic reorganization, because it has unfortunately become more or less of an organic part of the social order and the economic system, which is destined to undergo reconstruction. Only the real religion of personal spiritual experience can function helpfully and creatively in the present crisis of civilization.
So if you think your church or your organization or your group is going to stay the same, I got news for you. It's not. Institutional religion is now caught in the stalemate of a vicious circle. It cannot reconstruct society without first reconstructing itself. And being so much of an integral part of the established order, it cannot reconstruct itself until society has been radically reconstructed. Really? Would you take the next one?
I'm still pondering that last one.
Really? Yeah, because it was written in 1930.
Now,
Is Diane going to read with us tonight?
yeah, she's reading with us tonight. But think about when this was written in 1930. All the things that were going on. Hitler was just coming into power, right? 1930 through 1934, right? So they're talking about institutional religion reconstructing back then. That was 70 years ago, right? And so this is even more true today. We're going at an increased pace as the years go on. It seems like we're reconstructing society just as fast as we possibly can. So, there's a lot involved in it, really.
Hey, Roger, when you say institutional religions, you're talking about most churches today and even mosques and etc.?
All of them. all the above, every single one of them, everything from the Baptist church, Pentecostal church, the Muslims, everyone. You know, things are changing in all these churches, and what we get comfortable with going to these churches and thinking it's going to stay the same throughout time, it will not. It will not. We are stepping into a society and a change in religious culture where our religion will become a personal religion more than a social religion. Okay? So you will have to make a decision about your concepts of God the Father and Jesus and everything else all by yourself, within yourself. Because as the churches fail, and they eventually will, they're all eventually going to different forms that they are right now. Our being comfortable in those will also have to change. We have to become more comfortable with a religion within ourselves, right? And
You know, there was one woman who did a research program, and she was finding out that most people were leaving the church, mosque, and synagogues, and they were getting involved in communities like CrossFit. So people want that brotherhood, but they just don't want all the dogma.
yeah, they want the social aspect of a church, but they don't want the dogmatism of a church, of someone standing up in a church and saying, this is the way you have to believe, because it's just not true. You don't have to believe anything,
That's correct.
you know?
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. Tim, would you take this one?
Religionists must function in society and industry and in politics as individuals, not as groups, parties, or institutions. A religious group which presumes to function as such, apart from religious activities, immediately becomes a political party, an economic organization, or a social institution. Religious collectivism must confine its efforts to the furtherance of religious causes.
Not social causes and not political causes, right?
When they say social, that's, what was that word? Did you say social?
Yeah, social causes or political causes. A social cause would be like, example, that would be trying to feed all the hungry. That's a responsibility of all mankind, not just one religion, right? A political institution would be any political party that's trying to get its people elected or its ideas adopted, basically,
Correct.
right?
Thank you, Roger.
All right. Oh, come on. Not changing my slide. Okay. Rodney, would you take this one, please?
Religiousness have no more value in the task of social reconstruction than non-religions, except insofar as their religion has conferred upon them enhanced cosmic foresight and endowed them with that superior social wisdom which is born of the sincere desire to love God supremely and to love every man as a brother in the heavenly kingdom. An ideal social order is that in which every man loves his neighbor as he loves himself.
Just exactly what Jesus taught, right?
Exactly.
All right.
It's what Melchizedek taught as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what Melchizedek taught as well.
The institutionalized church may have appeared to serve society in the past by glorifying the established political and economic orders, but it must speedily cease such action if it is to survive. Its only proper attitude consists in the teaching of nonviolence, the doctrine of peaceful evolution in the place of violent revolution, peace on earth and goodwill among all men.
That's what we need, right? More anything else. Modern religion finds it difficult to adjust its attitude toward the rapidly shifting social changes. only because it has permitted itself to become so thoroughly traditionalized, dogmatized, and institutionalized. The religion of living experience finds no difficulty in keeping ahead of all these social developments and economic upheavals, amid which it is ever functioned as a moral stabilizer, social guide, and spiritual pilot. True religion carries over from one age to another with the worthwhile culture, that wisdom which is born of the experience of knowing God and striving to be like Him. And that just goes from generation to generation.
When they say the spiritual pilot, they're talking about the thought adjuster
That's right, that's correct.
and the social guide.
The social guide would be the same, well, not exactly, but it would be the thought adjuster, but it would also be the influence of the spirit of
Other
truth.
people.
Yeah, and other people, right. Millie, would you take the next one?
3. Religion and the religionist. Early Christianity was entirely free from all civil entanglements, social commitments, and economic alliances. Only did later institutionalized Christianity become an organic part of the political and social structure of Occidental civilization.
And through the Middle Ages, the church and the state was so intermixed, it was hard to tell one from another, right? The popes and the priests would take up positions of the politicians, basically. And that's
I'd also like to mention that it's not like the Revelatories are picking on Christianity,
no,
but it's just, their assignment, they have little to work with, and this was a big thing back in those days
that's exactly right.
that needed the most help.
Yeah, they did. All right. Tim, would you take the next one?
Can you go to the next slide?
Sorry. It's a little slow today, sorry, Tim.
Okay, the kingdom of heaven is neither a social or economic order. It is an exclusively spiritual brotherhood of God-knowing individuals. True, such a brotherhood is in itself a new and amazing social phenomenon, attended by astounding political and economic repercussions.
Did y'all catch? It's an exclusively spiritual brotherhood of God-knowing individuals. That's the kingdom of heaven. Good definition there.
But wouldn't that become kind of like me versus you, kind of like what the church is doing now?
Not at all. Not at all, Tim, because as a member of the kingdom of heaven, our job is to influence positively every potential and current brother in the brotherhood of God. Right?
Correct.
Everyone, regardless of who they are.
Even if we disagree with them.
Even if you disagree with them. Right. Rodney, I think you're right.
The religionist was not unsympathetic with social suffering, not unmindful of civil injustice, not insulated from economic thinking, neither insensible to political tyranny. Religion influences social reconstruction directly because it spiritualizes and ideals the individual citizen. Indirectly, cultural civilization is influenced by the attitude of these individual religions as they become active and influential members of various social, moral, economic, and political groups.
Did y'all catch that? We influence individually. Okay? So when we influence people about anything religious to one another, it changes their attitude in their social, political, and economic groups because they've been influenced by a religious thought. Okay? And that's
That could be
how
a
we...
teaching from the Revelation, correct?
Pardon me?
That could be a teaching from the Revelation.
That's-
That's how we can influence.
That's exactly right. Sweet.
The attainment of a high cultural civilization demands first the ideal type of citizen, and then ideal and adequate social mechanisms wherewith such a citizenry may control the economic and political institutions of such an advanced human society.
Okay, so it's by this ideal type of citizen that we get a more ideal society, right? Because it influences into those societies.
Hey Roger, I had a question for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned you had encounters with people that pretty much threatened you to hell.
Yeah.
Did you ever get didn't condemn you?
Yeah. I've been condemned many times. Yes.
Did
Yeah.
you ever give them advice to where you think it may have kind of like, oh, maybe he was right? The influence that you had, this amazing revelation.
I always try to reveal the revelation every way I possibly can. But when people attack you on any psychological level like that, your immediate response is defend yourself. And I've learned over time, I stopped doing that. I just write it off as a idiocracy of that particular person. There's a difference between someone that's stupid and someone that's an idiot, right? Someone that's stupid just refuses to listen to anything. Okay, you can't train somebody that's stupid. You just can't. But somebody that's kind of an idiot or unknown of that subject, they can be taught. Okay, so everyone you meet is a potential student. Everyone. Even if they're totally stupid, when you meet them, I told Diane just today, I said, sometimes I said I have to keep my Christian and my Jesusonian hat on because sometimes I really get sick of ignorance. I really do, or just stupid people. You can talk to them and talk to them and talk to them and it never gets in. They don't hear anything. They had this attitude of, I have my world in this little box and no one's going to upset my little box, and anything you say might upset my little box, right? So that's what we're talking about here. And it's tough to always take the enlightened viewpoint with everyone. It really is. And sometimes you just have to keep your mouth shut and walk on, because there's nothing you can say.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. But yes, Tim, I have been condemned to hell more times than I would like to think. All right. Who's up here? I think I'm up. The church, because of overmuch false sentiment, has long ministered to the underprivileged and the unfortunate, and this has all been well, but the same sentiment has led to the unwise perpetuation of racially degenerate stocks, which have tremendously retarded the progress of civilization. So when you give to folks in need, you have to do it very carefully and try to do it with the idea of why they are in need, right? And
Using a lot of wisdom too, right?
it takes a lot of wisdom, and there is no perfect solution to figure this out, okay? That's why we have to try to be as kind to people that's unfortunate as possible, but we want them to do for themselves as much as humanly possible, right? Because that's their learning they have to do, right?
That's correct. Just people you speak to, there's a level of understanding what you can and can't say.
That's right.
And I always respect that with people. I don't, take their beliefs and just crush them. I
Yeah.
always listen and
No, you can't do that because you may take their opportunity to actually make a decision towards something better.
that's correct.
Yeah. Millie, I think you're up.
Many individual social reconstructionists, while vehemently repudiating institutionalized religion, are after all zealously religious in the propagation of their social reforms. And so it is that religious motivation, personal and more or less unrecognized, is playing a great part in the present-day program of social reconstruction.
And that's true. Look at any church and see how many programs they have for social betterment for the underclasses, right? They're all there.
Unrecognized people who have left the church because they don't like all the rigmarole, but they go out and they do what Jesus taught. They work with people, they help the downtrodden.
Yeah.
You know, they join organizations that work to uplift.
Yeah.
Is
You don't have to be a member of a church to do good, do you, Millie? You really don't. All right. Tim, would you take the next one?
The great weakness of all this unrecognized and unconscious type of religious activity is that it is unable to profit from open religious criticism and thereby attain to profitable levels of self-correction. It is a fact that religion does not grow unless it is disciplined by constructive criticism, amplified by philosophy, purified by science, and nourished by loyal fellowship.
There you go.
Understood.
Wow.
Well said. This is a beautiful church. Right. Stick that in there. All right.
Wow, that's pretty.
Yeah. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
There is always the great danger that religion will become distorted and perverted into the pursuit of false goals. It is when, in times of war, each contending nation prostitutes its religion into military propaganda. Loveless zeal is always harmful to religion, while persecution diverts the activities of religion into the achievement of some sociologic or theologic drive.
I want to tell you, a war can distort many things, right?
Mm-hmm. So many wars have been fought only for religious sake.
Yeah, that's true. You?
Religion can be kept free from unholy secular alliances only by 1. A critically corrective philosophy. 2. Freedom from all social, economic, and political alliances. 3. Creative, comforting, and love-expanding fellowships. 4. Progressive enhancement of spiritual insight and the appreciation of cosmic values. 5. Prevention of fanaticism by the compensations of the scientific mental attitude.
There you go. There's your blueprint of how to keep religion out of social, economic, and political alliances. Right there.
Hey Roger, what would be some kind of fanaticism examples?
When you
Speaking
get,
in tongues and rolling around on the ground.
that's one kind of fanaticism, but another kind of fanaticism is when any religion takes the position that their view is the only view and they have the right to go out and kill and maim and destroy everybody that doesn't feel like they do. Okay? And an example of that religion, quote, quote, was World War II, if you think about it. Hitler's regime had a strong influence of a lot of different religions that they were trying to find out the secrets of these holy things, right? Because they wanted to basically wipe out everybody that did not feel like they did, if you think about it. The ones that suffered the most, of course, were the Jews. But many other types of people during World War II were wiped out because they did not believe with the Nazi philosophy, right? And that's a real problem. But any time that your religion is influenced by any of these 5 things, then you have a problem, right? It needs to be corrected. All right?
Right, because most people, they back that up by saying, well, the Bible says.
Yeah.
That's what they always say to justify it.
Yeah.
The Bible
So many things have been justified by what the Bible says. It's unreal. Wars have been fought, people have been killed, innocent people have been killed over and over and over again because something that was said in the Bible or some other religious text. Now, it's not just the Bible. That's just one, right? So,
That's correct.
all right. Okay. Religionists as a group must never concern themselves with anything but religion. Albeit any one such religionist as an individual citizen may become the outstanding leader of some social, economic, or political reconstruction movement. Just because you're a religionist doesn't mean you can't participate in these things. It's just not the church itself, whatever church you're in, should not be associated with that, right? All right. Millie.
It is the business of religion to create, sustain, and inspire such a cosmic loyalty in the individual citizen as will direct him to the achievement of success in the advancement of all these difficult but desirable social services.
There you go. All right, Tim, did you take the next one?
4. Transition difficulties. Genuine religion renders the religionist socially fragrant and creates insights into human fellowship. But the formalization of religious groups many times destroys the very values for the promotion of which the group was organized. Human friendship and divine religion are mutually helpful and significantly illuminating. If the growth in each is equalized and harmonized, religion puts new meanings into all group associations, families, schools, and clubs. It imparts new values to play and exalts all true humor. That's really a definition of what genuine religion is.
It really is. It's a perfect one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Social leadership is transformed by spiritual insight. Religion prevents all collective movements from losing sight of their true objectives. Together with children, religion is the great unifier of family life, provided it is a living and growing faith. Family life cannot be had without children. It can be lived without religion. But such a handicap enormously multiplies the difficulties of this intimate human association. During the early decades of the 20th century, family life, next to personal religious experience, suffers most from the decadence consequence upon the transition from old religious loyalties to the emerging new meanings and values.
So that's what it's telling here. You can have a family life and children, right? But that is really no way to have a beautiful family relationship. It handicaps your intimate association with your own family, right? And that's not good, right? Because if you want to learn meanings and values, you do that through religion and your family, right? All right, here.
True religion is a meaningful way of living dynamically, face to face, with commonplace realities of everyday life. But if religion is to stimulate individual development of character and augment integration of personality, it must not be standardized. If it is to stimulate evaluation of experience and serve as a value lure, it must not be stereotyped. If religion is to promote supreme loyalties, it must not be formalized.
What are they talking about formalized and developed into creeds and things like that, like churches do, that they want everyone to follow exactly the same? And each one of us are individuals, so we have to make our own decisions, right? All right. No matter what upheavals may attend the social and economic growth of civilization, religion is genuine and worthwhile if it fosters in the individual an experience in which the sovereignty of truth, beauty, and goodness prevails. For such is the true spiritual concept of supreme reality. And through love and worship, this becomes meaningful as fellowship with man and sonship with God. It's all about living this life, isn't it? Experiencing what Millie?
After all, it is what one believes rather than what one knows that determines conduct and dominates personal performances. Purely factual knowledge exerts very little influence upon the average man unless it becomes emotionally activated. But the activation of religion is super emotional, unifying the entire human experience on transcendent levels through contact with and release of spiritual energies in the world.
That's heavy duty. Tim.
During these psychologically unsettled times of the 20th century, amid the economic upheavals, the war cross currents, and the
Sociologic.
sociologic is rip is right.
Riptides.
Look,
Yeah, riptides. What's that? At the cyclonic transitions of a scientific era, thousands upon thousands of men and women have become humanly dislocated. They are anxious, restless, fearful, uncertain, and unsettled as never before in the world's history. They need the consolation and stabilization of sound religion. In the face of
Unprecedented.
unprecedented scientific achievement and mechanical development, there is spiritual stagnation and philosophical chaos.
Okay, what are they talking about here? Things are going on, they have been for the last 100 years, so fast. That's what they're talking about, the riptides and cyclonic transition of the scientific era. Things just moving. Things are changing so fast, human beings can't keep up. And so it makes them feel restless and afraid of everything that's going on. Things are changing so fast, I can't keep up with them, right? And you want to see a good example of that, look at cell phones. The older generation, many of them, I experienced this today with my mother. She couldn't figure out how to use these new cell phones. She wanted to go back to her old phone. The reason being is because things have changed so quickly that people do not have time to keep caught up on everything, right? And that's the way they're talking about that happens in our psychology and our religious organizations and social organizations, that things change so fast that the human being can't keep up anymore, right? And that's what they're talking about here. And so that it causes spiritual stagnation and philosophic chaos. They stay confused all the time.
So basically, due to this change, they're feeling anxious, restless, and fearful. and
Yeah.
uncertain?
Constantly, right? Yeah.
But when they talk about the sociologic riptide, if you know what a riptide is, it's under the water. It's happening, but you don't see it unless you get caught in it.
That's right. Pulls you under, doesn't it?
It moves you on it
That's
if
right.
you don't see it. The sociologic riptide is the sociologic movement that's going really fast, but you don't see it, you're not aware of it, it just happens.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like the artificial intelligence stuff that's happening
Yeah.
now. I mean, it's very challenging.
It is. It makes people afraid because they don't. Number one, they don't understand it. Number two, they don't want it. Right. Okay. Here we go. Robbie, would you take the next one?
there is no danger in religions becoming more and more of a private matter, a personal experience, provided it does not lose its motivation for unselfish and loving social service. Religion has suffered from many secondary influences, sudden mixing of cultures, intermingling of creeds, diminution of ecclesiastical authority, changing of family life, together with urbanization and mechanization.
Okay, a good example of what they're talking about here is think of during the times of Jesus, right after Jesus left, Paul the Apostle comes along and he mixes an established religion, right, that he grew up with, basically in his town, with Christianity. So what we end up with Christianity in the Christian church is a mixture of his early training as a lad with his concepts of Christianity, and that in essence became the Christian church. So it was the mixing and the intermingling of creeds that went on back then that was a perfect example of what they're talking about, right? And it's easy for it to happen. That was just an influence from one man, right? All right. Okay. Sweetie?
Man's greatest spiritual jeopardy consists in partial progress, predicament of unfinished growth, forsaking the evolutionary religions of fear without immediately grasping the revelatory religion of love. Modern science, particularly psychology, has weakened only those religions which are so largely dependent upon fear, superstition, and emotion.
And how many churches you've been in that they try to control you with fear, right? You're going to hell, right? You've done this, so the result of this is going to hell, right?
Is that Billy?
That's Billy.
My
He's
father
gonna scratch
said,
for a
"Well, I
while.
won't be attending. My father has made other arrangements for me."
What was that,
What did you say,
Tim?
When somebody tells you to go to hell, that's when I would reply, "Well, my father has made other arrangements, so I won't be attending."
That's a good comment.
That's great.
I know the reason I get damned so much, Tim, is I just tell them I don't believe in hell. You know, so yeah. All right. Who's next? I am. Transition is always accompanied. Whew. We have a cat box here close to me. Let me get my breath.
Thanks for sharing, honey.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yeah, they're so cute.
Yes, they're so lovely. Transition is always accompanied by confusion, and there will be little tranquility in the religious world until the great struggle between the three contending philosophies of religion is ended. The spiritualistic belief in a providential deity of many religions, the humanistic and idealistic belief of many philosophies, and three, the mechanic and naturalistic concepts of many sciences.
Mechanistic.
Mechanistic, I'm sorry, naturalistic
What are they talking
conceptions.
about in those three, Roger? Can you define those three?
Many sciences. I can't even think of those three right now. If y'all could be here, you'd be amazed that I'm breathing. Okay, so let's see. Okay, the spiritualistic belief in a providential deity in many religions. There's a overgrowing or a overshadowing belief that God controls every single thing in our life, right? I mean, how many people have you heard said, I'm going to buy this house if it's God's will, right? Too many. Because a lot of things you have to make decisions about is not what's God's will, but is your turn to make regular, fundamental decisions on your own. It's part of the growing process, right? So this is a spiritualistic belief in a providence of deity. In other words, if you do everything good, you're going to end up rich and famous and all that stuff, right? Ain't going to happen.
This spiritualistic belief of many religions, actually, they think that God is looking at them daily.
Yeah.
I mean, God is incorporated what they're doing and what he is observing.
That's right. God is part of you.
Think
Yeah,
that he is interested individually when he has given you a mind and a guide to lead your life.
yeah, He experiences it with you, right? As the thought adjuster.
He's just watching and he is amazed at what you're doing.
That's right. All right, the other thing is the humanistic and idealistic belief of many philosophies. We've interchanged so many different philosophies, we can't tell what is truly religious and what is secular, to be honest, right? And then there's the mechanistic and naturalistic conceptions of many sciences. So many scientists take the concept that there is no God and He's not involved in anything. All right? That's
They
what
have their dogmas too, Roger.
they have their dogmas too. That's right. And in reality, none of these things are correct, right?
Well,
Basically.
many scientists say that these things could not possibly just accidentally happen.
That's right.
There's something guiding it.
Well, that's because some of the scientists are enlightened.
They're not going to say it's God. They're
No.
just going to say it's not natural evolution.
Well, some of them call it a primordial force, right?
What do they call it?
Yeah. Let's see.
Is that cat boxing?
Yeah, he's boxing.
He's elderly, he's a very elderly cat.
Millie, will you take the next one? He's making the rounds of the boxes. He got problems.
Sounds like he's working out.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Millie, would you take the next one, please?
Yes.
Change that.
Oh, sorry.
And the three partial approaches to the reality of the cosmos must eventually become harmonized by the revelatory presentation of religion, philosophy, and cosmology, which portrays the triune existence of spirit, mind, and energy proceeding from the Trinity of Paradise and attaining time-space unification within the deity of the Supreme. And most people can't wrap their head around anything that you say that has anything to do with cosmology or the cosmos.
No, they can't.
That's not even in their space.
And then trying to tell them that spirit, mind, and energy proceeds from the Trinity of Paradise, they go, they get a blank look on their face. They have no idea what you're talking about. And the deity of the Supreme, you can forget that. They don't even have any concept of that, right?
We've got a long way to go.
We've got a long way to go. All right, Tim, would you take the next one, please?
Section 5, Social Aspects of Religion. Where religion is exclusively a personal spiritual experience, knowing God as a Father. The corollary of this experience, knowing man as brother, entails the adjustment of the self to other selves, and that involves the social or group aspect of religious life. Religion is first an inner or personal adjustment, and then it becomes a matter of social service or group adjustment. The fact that man's gargaceous perforce determines that religious groups will come into existence. What happens to these religious groups depends very much on intelligent leadership. In primitive society, the religious group is not always very different from the economic or political groups. Religion has always been a conservator of morals and a stabilizer of society. And this is still true, notwithstanding the contrary teaching of many modern socialists and humanists.
So maybe so, but they're teaching that,
You
right?
know, there was a word in there I was going to ask you about.
All right, what's that?
Gregariousness?
Gregariousness. Man is gregarious. It means he's friendly
Yes.
with his friendliness.
Outgoing.
Gregarious.
Outgoing, boastful, that sort of thing.
Maybe not boastful.
Yeah.
Oh, the social service. Well, yeah, when they talk about social service, is that just going out and society, or what do they mean by social?
Social service can
For
be
service,
dozens and dozens and dozens of things. You can do social service by going, like Millie does, the Habitat for Humanity, working,
Oh, it's wonderful. Millie.
do things like that. Social service can be going out and helping feed the hungry, right?
Okay, right.
You know, it's a lot of different things. You know, nurses and doctors volunteer in countries that can't pay for it. That's all social service, right?
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
please keep in mind, true religion is to know God as your Father, and man is your brother. Religion is not a slavish belief in threats of punishment or magical promises of future mystical rewards.
God is not Santa Claus, right? So you don't get involved with the church to get a benefit of some great thing or some great present because you're there, right?
Right.
Right.
You can't make deals
You
either.
can't make deals with God, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't find God on let's make a deal, right?
Yeah.
That verse will make every evangelist just spit teeth.
I
It's so simplistic,
I know.
yeah. It's so simplistic.
know. Yeah, I offend an equal opportunity to all people. So,
Well, let's not forget who the number one offender was, and that was Jesus.
that's right. All right.
The religion of Jesus is the most dynamic influence ever to activate the human race. Jesus shattered tradition, he destroyed dogma, and called mankind to the achievement of its highest ideals in time and eternity, to be perfect, even as the Father in heaven is perfect.
That's a tall order, isn't it?
You know, and I often wondered about that because I don't think that it's possible to become perfect in this first life we have.
It
It's
may,
going to take many ages for a person to become perfect.
well, that's true, Rodney, but that's our goal. That's what we should strive for, right?
And I sure don't see it happening on this planet.
Not likely. You know, I know I'm not perfect. I'm not even in the ballpark, right? So,
Hey,
yeah.
Me neither.
It's the intent, though. It is the intent of your heart.
Religion has little chance to function until the religious group becomes separated from all other groups, the social association of the spiritual membership of the kingdom of heaven. There you go. Millie?
The doctrine of the total depravity of man destroyed much of the potential for religion for effecting social repercussions of an uplifting nature and of inspirational value. Jesus sought to restore man's dignity when he declared that all men are the children of God.
All men are the children of God. No exceptions. Kim, would you take the next?
Any religious belief which is effective in spiritualizing the believer is certain to have powerful repercussions in the social life of such religions. Religious experience unfailingly yields the fruits of the Spirit in the daily life of the Spirit-led believer.
That's a good thing to look up in the Bible. You can click that link, it'll tell you what the fruits of the Spirit are, but it's in the Bible too. All right, Rodney, let's take the next one.
just as certainly as men share their religious beliefs, they create a religious group of some sort, which eventually creates common goals. Someday, religionists will get together and actually effect cooperation on the basis of unity of ideals and purposes, rather than attempting to do so on the basis of
Psychological.
psychological opinions and theological beliefs. Goals rather than creeds should unify religionists, since true religion is a matter of personal experience, it is inevitable that each individual religionist must have his own and personal interpretation of the realization of that spiritual experience. Let the term faith stand for the individual's relation to God rather than for the credo formulation of what some group of morals have been able to agree upon as a common religious attitude. Have you faith? Then have it to yourself.
There you go. It's personal, right?
That faith is concerned only with the grasp of ideal values is shown by the New Testament definition, which declares that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen.
Hey Roger,
Yeah.
is that how you would describe faith as revelatory see it?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Um,
Would you say it's also confidence?
faith, confidence, yeah, it is in your relationship with God the Father, or you're just personally, right? It's a personal relationship is what it is. And you can't explain that to someone who has never felt something like that. You know?
That's correct.
Who's up? I think Rodney's up. Huh?
Did Diane just read or?
No.
Oh,
No, I think you did, didn't you, Tim? Did you just read?
no.
I'm lost again. Oh, no, Diane is up. I'm sorry. Rodney just read.
Rodney just read?
Yeah.
Sorry. Primitive man made little effort to put his religious convictions into words. His religion was danced out rather than thought out. Modern men have thought out many creeds and created many tests of religious faith. Future religionists must live out their religion, dedicate themselves to the wholehearted service of the brotherhood of man. It is high time that man had a religious experience so personal and so sublime that it could be realized and expressed only by feelings that lie too deep for words.
That's
Wow.
it. In
That's it right there.
a nutshell, right?
That's good.
Yeah, it is. Jesus did not require of his followers that they should periodically assemble and recite a form of words indicative of their common beliefs. That was not his idea. It is only ordained that they should gather together to actually do something, partake of the communal supper of the remembrance of his bestowal of life on your nation. And that's it. Millie.
Such a beautiful ritual.
Yeah.
The remembrance, the shooting the cup.
Millie, I think you're up.
What a mistake for Christians to make when presenting Christ as the supreme ideal of spiritual leadership. They dare to require God-conscious men and women to reject the historic leadership of the God-knowing men who have contributed to their particular national or racial illumination during past ages.
And they're talking about secular here, right?
What?
They're talking about secular, not religious men. Tim?
Institutional religion. Sectarianism is a disease of institutional religion, and dogmatism is an enslavement of the spiritual nature. It is far better to have a religion without a church than a church without a religion. The religious turmoil of the 20th century does not, in and of itself, betoken spiritual decadence. Confusion goes before growth, as well as before destruction.
Mm.
So we hope this confusion we have nowadays is before growth. Right? Rodney?
There is a real purpose in the socialization of religion. It is the purpose of group religious activities to dramatize the loyalties of religion, to magnify the rules of truth, beauty, and goodness, to foster the attractions of supreme values, to enhance the service of unselfish fellowship, to glorify the potentials of family life, to promote religious education, to provide wise counsel and spiritual guidance, and to encourage group worship. And all life religions encourage human friendship, conserve morality, promote neighborhood welfare, and facilitate the speed of the
Spread.
essential gospel, and facilitate the spread of the essential gospel of their respective messages of eternal salvation.
Notice it's funny, they only mention this in this paragraph, the eternal salvation, the ascension plan. You know, they talk about all these other things and then they stick it near the end.
But as religion becomes institutionalized, its power for good is curtailed, while the possibilities for evil are greatly multiplied. The dangers of formalized religion are fixation of beliefs and crystallization of sentiments, accumulation of vested interests with increase of secularization, tendency to standardize and fossilize truth, diversion of religion from the service of God to the service of the church, inclination of leaders to become administrators instead of ministers, tendency to form sects and competitive divisions, establishment of oppressive ecclesiastical authority, creation of the aristocratic chosen people attitude, fostering of false and exaggerated ideas of sacredness, the routinizing of religion and the petrification of worship, tendency to venerate the past while ignoring present demands, failure to make up-to-date interpretations of religion, entanglement with functions of secular institutions. It creates the evil discrimination of religious castes. It becomes an intolerant judge of orthodoxy. It fails to hold the interest of adventurous youth and gradually loses the saving message of the gospel of eternal salvation.
How many churches can you see this very thing in?
I would like to give that to all the churches.
Yeah, every single one of them. That's the problem. Formal religion restrains men in their personal spiritual activities instead of releasing them for an heightened service as kingdom builders. Millie, will you take the next one?
Religion's contribution. Though churches and all other religious groups should stand aloof from all secular activities, at the same time, religion must do nothing to hinder or retard the social coordination of human institutions. Life must continue to grow in meaningfulness. Man must go on with his reformation of philosophy and his clarification of religion.
What do they mean by cellular activities?
Secular activities, you mean?
Yes.
That's activities outside the religion or the church, right? What would be an example of a church that does secular activities? How about baseball?
Yeah.
Right.
Sports.
Sports programs in
Right,
the church.
right, like dances or parties or
Yeah,
Yeah.
the church becomes so involved in the sports activities they forget what they're there for.
right. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Well, I'm very critical, right? Political science, okay. Rodney, would you take this one?
Yes. Political science must affect the reconstruction of economics and industry by the techniques it learns from the social sciences and by the insights and motives supplied by religious living. And as to reconstruction, religion provides a stabilizing loyalty to its transcendent project, a steadying goal beyond and above the immediate and temporal objective. In the midst of the confusions of a rapidly changing environment, no man needs the sustenance of a far-flung cosmic perspective.
Religion inspires man to live courageously and joyfully on the face of the earth. It joins patience with passion, insight to zeal, sympathy with power, and ideals with energy.
Man can never wisely decide temporal issues or transient the selfishness of personal interest unless he mediates in the presence of the sovereignty of God and reckons with the realities of divine meanings and spiritual values. And then, would you take our last one, please?
Economic independence and social fraternity will ultimately conduce to brotherhood. Man is naturally a dreamer, but science is sobering him so that religion can presently activate him with far less danger of precipitating fanatical reactions. Economic necessities tie man up with reality, and personal religious experience brings this same man face to face with the eternal realities of an ever-expanding and progressing cosmic citizenship. Presented by Melchizedek of Midian.
Did you notice how even in the very last paragraph it brings us back to the fact that we're living this life for experience. And we're living this life for the experience to go on to a greater cosmic citizenship, right? In dimension.
By reading this book, we at least have an idea of what a cosmic citizenship is.
That's right. That's right. And next,
Before this, everybody just thought they were American.
yeah, that's right. And next time we'll take up religion and human experience.
United States. I'm a citizen of the United States.
Yeah.
So when somebody simply asks you, what are you? Who are you? I am spirit soul.
And y'all, we're on paper.
When they ask you what race you are, I am spirit soul.
There you go. We're on paper 100 next time. We've gotten all the way up to 100. Now we're going to, as we go through 100, there's a few papers that we did when we first started this, so we're going to skip over a couple here and get up to 119. And then at that point, we've already done 119 through 147 or 148, I forget. So we're going to have a little gap here a couple times, so y'all just bear with me. That way we'll get all the papers out there. Right. So next time, paper 100. And, Millie, would you like to close this tonight?
Yes. Father, we thank you for letting us come together again at this time. We all find this new revelation interesting and complex, and we strive to incorporate this new knowledge and these new concepts in our daily lives. Please guide us and help us be ever present of our cosmic connection. So we thank you for the teachings of Jesus who explained to us exactly how you would like us to live our lives. We say this prayer in his name, Jesus of Nazareth. Praise God. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for joining us at home. Please come and listen to them. It's a good thing. Let me turn this off here.
You were saying you didn't think we could make it to